Their raucous calls were once part of the city's soundscape. But with rapid urbanisation, the croaking of frogs during the monsoon showers went silent. Scientist Robin Suyesh wants to change that. Having worked in remote forests across the country, Robin has now turned his attention to urban spaces. Armed with the latest technology based on their vocalization calls, Robin is mapping frog hotspots in New Delhi. His ultimate aim is to protect the frogs. The life cycle of amphibians centers around the rains. As the monsoon rains lash the city, the frogs become active. Robin has invited me for a frog walk, quite close to where he's been monitoring their calls. As we walk around the edge of a culvert where water has gathered, we must use our ears more than our eyes to guide us. The calls lead us to some of the frogs that are nearby.
Like if you just look at this place, it actually provides different microhabitats for almost all the species that we have in NCR. And actually I've seen all of them breeding around this place. Frogs are vocally active animals, and actually this is a very important thing because that has actually helped me to track the frogs all across the NCR.
Frogs let out a variety of calls, whether it is during their courtship or their mating rituals. The most commonly heard vocalizations are let out by the male in search of a female and are known as advertisement calls. Robin has been able to document the calls of as many as 8 species in the national capital and the surrounding regions. Some of these include Asian common toad, which breeds in still ponds or flowing rivers, while adults are largely terrestrial. The Indus Valley toad is actively seen breeding during the monsoon months from June to September. The Indian bullfrog is the largest frog in India. Said to be carnivorous, it can feed on its own tadpoles as well as mosquito larvae. The narrow-mouthed frog is considered the smallest land vertebrate of Delhi. It lives on land, underground, or in trees and is generally secretive in nature. The marbled balloon frog lives in burrows only to venture out during the monsoon rains. Pierre's wart frog enjoys a widespread distribution across South Asia. It's seen in water bodies as well as paddy fields. The Indian skipper frog or skittering frog can often be seen at the center of bodies of water with their eyes right above the surface. When disturbed, they give the appearance of skipping above the water surface, hence the name. The Indian burrowing frog, the structure of the hind limbs enables this frog to burrow in the ground for about 1.5 feet.
Major highlights of the study is that I found multiple breeding sites, which was actually not known. Recorded all the frogs that we have in NCR, and we are also publishing papers on acoustic descriptions of some of those species.
Back at Robin's workstation, as we take refuge from the pelting rain, he walks me through the range of frog calls he has recorded. Every species, every call has a story to tell.
You know, the most interesting thing that you can see while you are analyzing the call is that, the smaller the frog, they have a much higher dominant frequency, and they are much louder. Their power in the call is much higher compared to, and as a layman, we normally think that it's the other way around.
The study has also revealed presence of multiple call types previously unreported in some species. These vocalizations indicate a more interesting natural history behavior in the species.
Yeah, so what you heard was, like, you can hear there was a call in the foreground and there was a call in the background. So these two frogs completely having different frequencies as per the analysis, and that is what helps them coexist. Actually, not only they are living in different their microhabitat preferences are different, even they are acoustically also distinct from each other. You can easily identify frogs by their calls.
As soon as the rain stops, we head out to an ephemeral pool, again at the edge of a construction site. From a distance, it seems like a garbage dump. But for these two male skipper frogs, it's a contested sight. The protagonists get ready for a duel. Amphibians are very responsive to the calls of their own species. A rival male ignores the territorial male's warning and jumps straight into the battle zone. It's now a full-blown wrestling match. Both sides must give it their best. The rival male inflates his body to give himself a larger-than-life appearance, gesturing as if this is now his territory. But the dominant frog is not to be intimidated. He's not giving up on his position as the king of the pond that evening. It's now down to the final blow. Both sides giving their best. Finally, the imaginary whistle of a referee. There is a winner. The intruder has lost the territorial male. He The dominant male is unchallenged. His prize is the pond. He will hold on to his territory for his future offspring.
If you look at other frogs that we have in NCR, they don't have that kind of call diversity. They're very, you can hear them only like making one or maybe sometimes rarely a second type of call. But this one has a very complex sound, which is you can hear in the background. It can make 5 to 6 types of sound depending upon the situation that they are in. They have aggressive calls. When they move, they make another kind of sound. Or sometimes, there is a very typical mating call which sounds like a machine gun. So, makes the call of this particular frog very interesting. People can get confused listening to the sound, that whether it's just one frog or there are many frogs together.
The pond is set in a sea of concrete as this site is earmarked for construction of multi-story flats.
So last year when I came here, this was a very good breeding site for frogs because all these area that you can see was having ephemeral ponds which was serving as an ideal breeding habitats for amphibians of Delhi NCR. But unfortunately, what you can see right now is that every single piece of land has been given for real estate, and definitely this is affecting the habitat of these frogs and we are losing it.
To be able to witness the natural behavior of these frogs virtually in the backyard of the city seems like a privilege. But Robin reminds me that the microhabitats of the frogs face an uncertain future.
As of now, my study shows that we have 8 species of amphibians in Delhi NCR, out of which you can see 4 of them very commonly, but the other 4 we cannot see them. They're not very common. Delhi saw a lot of unplanned infrastructural development and lost most of its wetland and water bodies which were ideal breeding sites for these amphibians. So we don't really see them in Delhi. But there are some pockets of green spaces where wetlands are still existing, where we can still find frogs. So, if we can maintain these areas,
if you can look over here, these are the stormwater drains. The water from the roads during the monsoon and when there's high rainfall drains off right here into these culverts. And these culverts then act as repositories for biodiversity, such as frogs or water birds. They'll all be found nesting here. And perhaps that's why the coexistence of urban biodiversity and all this infrastructure is possible if we could save patches such as these. As their movements are aligned with the flow of water, Robin's research urges urban planners and architects to design with nature to protect nature.
The climate change has a huge impact on amphibian here in Delhi NCR. But if you look at the rainfall pattern that we have in the city, like sometimes you can see there is a lot of gap between the rainfall, which is one of the major problems because they require ephemeral pools to breed. And so they need constant supply of water. But if there is gap of more than a month, we can see that the ponds dry up and all their eggs and the tadpoles that are there, they might die off during the process.
Scientists across the world fear that more than 50 amphibian species have already become extinct over the last 15 years alone, which includes more than 18 in South Asia. Robin's research has shown that frogs may completely disappear from our cities unless we protect our green spaces on a priority basis. As cities expand into wetlands, simple changes in design can ensure that the chorus of the frogs are part of our urban landscapes forever.